All right, good morning out there. Today is Wednesday, May 14th, 2025. I'm Anthony, and this is Drive Dive. So on Monday, I posted a video titled, "What do you do for fun?" And I wanted to follow up on that idea, especially after a comment from Promotus Animations. User shared that he is an animator, and I guess he enjoys doing that. He gets to do it for a living, and he doesn't always enjoy it, it is fun. He does feel productive. He doesn't feel like he's wasting his time. And what I would add, right, for the trifecta, I'm sure, I sincerely hope that, that's what's putting food on the table, right? That's what's, putting money in the bank, all that, however you want to phrase it, right? So, three things, right? I mean, it's, you enjoy doing it. You get to do it, for a living, right? And, it's lucrative, right? I mean, I guess there are things you could do, for a living that maybe aren't so lucrative, right? Or things you could do for a living that aren't fun. I keep saying for a living because I've also read some headlines, no surprise, right? That quite a number of Americans are not earning enough to, just pay the bills, right? Keep up with daily living costs. Food, housing, energy, etc. Very sad reality, but that's, using the air quotes, like what we do for a living, is it really a living, and is it enough? Is it lucrative enough, bringing in enough money to support, sustain? And I think, you asked my question of, what is it that you do for fun? Like, I really, I see and hear, people talking about, I don't know, some of their activities, or I think it's a lot of just sometimes watching television, being entertained by, sports or sitcoms or, what have you. And I don't know that maybe I just have too much on my plate, where I oftentimes feel guilty about sitting down to watch television and just be entertained when, I could be doing X, Y, or Z, and even though there are things that I enjoy doing, like playing Disney Lorcana, I sincerely enjoy doing it. I feel like I'm getting better at it, right? So there's the improvement sort of aspect that I kind of, have a need for. But like I said, it's fun, and I get to compete. It's something I get to do with my son, so it's multifaceted. It gets me out of the house. I'm socializing, meeting people, and texting about some of that experience, and as we're striking up conversations, right, sharing life experiences outside of that, really connecting, I think, at times with some of the people that we run into at local shops, or local 20-30 minutes away, sometimes 45, sometimes 90 minutes away, but really meeting people, who've then shared, some of their stories, and have expressed that how awesome they think it is that I do this with my son, that they recall as a child playing trading card games, and maybe their parents weren't so supportive, and, they really wished that, their parents were more supportive. So, just getting a lot out of the experience, but that said, it's okay, sometimes, right, even that is okay, yes, but is it taking up too much time? I enjoy playing Disney Lorcana, but is it taking up too much of my time? Should I maybe cut out some of that fun, right? Is this struggle, and maybe it's where my mind is, right? So I picked up on a conversation too, where yesterday as I'm walking out of the building, I hear, two male students walking down the hall. I teach high school, and one says to the other, "Oh, my dad says, I'm obsessing over my new girlfriend," and they're like, "Well, that's not such a problem, and really supporting one another and saying no, it's great to have a girlfriend. I'm excited to have a girlfriend. Let me enjoy this, sort of thing." And I'm just wondering that, there are two different perspectives here, right? It's embrace the fun, embrace the new, exciting, or are we a bit more reserved and go, wait, hold on, time out, is this maybe a little too much fun, could I maybe, keep things in check, and all things in moderation, and, so on and so forth. And yes, there are those two different perspectives. I don't know how to tell you which one to choose, but it is important to have fun, right? And to have that balance, right? All work and no play make Johnny a dull boy, or is that the phrase? I don't know. Right, so that's what I'm saying is what do we do for fun? Right? We do need to have that in the mix. It can't be all just, work, grind. Some of it has to count for fun. And I am envious of people, perhaps like Promotus, Animations, who has something that he does, that he enjoys doing. He can be productive in it, and it can be lucrative. I've been wondering if I myself, right, I posted a video forever ago that it feels like I titled, Synergy, right, of all these things that I'm doing, like where's the overlap, in terms of, I don't know, skill development and all, but I also think in terms of like just time, conserving time and being efficient with time, and possibly, right, like, making money, right, to support the family and so on. But I'm also right now, just to keep rambling, read an article this morning about different phrases that higher level or deeper thinkers often use. And some of those phrases, I used one here, was this notion of perspective. And okay, I'm looking at it a certain way, but is there another perspective? And how else can we look at these things? Another question is like, what am I missing? Right? What am I not seeing? What other information might be out there, might be available that I haven't quite gotten to yet, collected yet, analyzed yet? So are there different perspectives? What am I missing? Right? I think I've shared at times where I can get a little overwhelmed and, oh man, like if I knew I was going to have 2 hours, I would have done X, Y, or Z. But that's one perspective. One very negative one, right? And then the other is, well, what else is going on here? Okay, this isn't getting done, but what else is happening in this time that, counts as productivity, as progress, and, I can hang my hat on and feel better about that moment in time, and, really, really pushing myself to do that. There's another one. There was something like, in conversation, you would say to somebody, well, like how did you get there, right? Like, can you walk me through your thinking, sort of thing? And I love doing that with my students in a math lesson. They're working on a particular problem, and they're like, here's the answer that I got, and I'll say, well, walk me through it. How did you get it? And then so now you're trying to force them to share their thinking, to use academic vocabulary, right? And just have a bit more conversation. And it's always great when in that process, that light bulb goes off. Oh, that's what there's my mistake, or no, that sounds right. It must be good. And so to just get that sort of, affirmation and to kind of train them to do it themselves, right? They could have had that conversation with themselves and just said, okay, like, walk me through it. What'd you do, Ant? That's how I talk to myself. Call myself Ant. They can do the same. And so that's, I think, where I am now, to be like, what is this other perspective, right? As I struggle with what I do for a living, right? As a teacher, I currently have this, hour-long commute. The daily, photocopying and grading and emailing, it's a lot. It's a constant start-stop, and 45 minutes here on this, 45 minutes there, and oh nope, got to teach, and so I have to stop doing this and pick it back up later. I do find a lot of it challenging, being in the classroom again. Really for the first full year in about a decade. Nearing the end of it, and as they say, year one you survive, year two you thrive. There are definitely some changes I intend to make to the curriculum and the different lessons that were shared with me, the course materials that were shared with me. Make some changes, adjust my routine a little bit. Whether that's at work or at home. Trying to just fit it all in, make more time regularly for things like lesson planning and grading, and as I've said, changing some of the course materials, right? Fine-tuning the do-nows and teaching geometry, integrating more of the like pure geometry, like the constructions with a compass and a straight edge, and the algebra too, and algebra skills as well, like writing and solving equations. At times they were so disjointed where they could have been more integrated, I feel. and better match, my own teaching styles, but also I think, the needs of my students. And so definitely some changes I'd like to make, but overall, as I started out saying, right, that can be the totality of all that, can be draining. But like, what's the other perspective, right? As I'm struggling to determine, okay, to what extent do I enjoy all of this, and to what extent is all of this helping me, to have fun, right? To support my kids, to spend time with my children, right? And I think the reality is, like, the workday, like, no, obviously I'm not spending time with my children during the workday, but if you zoom out a little bit, in the 24 hours, that I have, whether it's a weekday or weekend or thank goodness, right? I mean, summer's coming up, every single day I might not get all of those things, right? Feelings of productivity, feelings of connectedness, of fun and joy, but zooming out enough, it is there, and I think I just have to keep looking for it, right? Like, what is the other perspective, right? If I zoom out, I am going to gain, a broader perspective. Okay, every day in the classroom, every day going to work isn't perfect, but it enables me to do quite a bit. Our lifestyle, right, allows me to do quite a bit outside of the workday. I am able to drop my son off in the morning, pick him up after school. My daughter too, right? As needed, more or less. My wife typically picks her up, but I'm able to do that too when needed. And we get to spend I don't know, an hour or two at home, really, together before the bedtime routine starts. And I do get to play Disney Lorcana, at least once or twice a week, right? And how much is enough? Like I said, trying to figure all that stuff out. But ultimately, yeah, it does come down to that. Like, what am I missing, right? Where are the opportunities, or the different ways of thinking about this, situation, the day to day, the week to week, month to month, year to year, where really it's like, no, man, like, you got it pretty good. And I think that's what I have to, really, keep reminding myself that I got it pretty good. And I hope you can do the same, right? I hope my rambling here today has given you a little bit, to do that as well, and answer that question of, well, what do I do for fun? Am I having fun? Am I having enough fun? Right? So yeah, with that, comment down below. Are you having enough fun? What do you do? How often do you get to have fun, right? Well, not just what do you do for fun, but how often do you get to do it? And how do you determine some of those things where, like, maybe I'm having a little too much fun and it's getting in the way of, some other things, right? How do you prioritize, whether you call it work-life balance or, work and play, all that fun stuff. So anyhow, comment down below, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And yeah, happy Wednesday. I hope it's not a rainy one for you like it is for me. Or maybe you need the rain, right? Is the other perspective. You, the plants, etc. So yeah, happy Wednesday. I'll see you tomorrow.